Hi everyone, Crista here with another episode of the Barefoot Genealogist. Today's topic is splitting or combining family trees. So it's going to be a little bit more how-to and a little less methodology today. But before we do that, I just want to dive into a discussion just briefly about why you might want to do one or the other. Now, I have a really strong opinion about this, and so I've tried to temper my own opinion. I've asked some of our power users some of their opinions so that I could try to present both sides a little more fairly, and hopefully I've accomplished that. As always, if you have questions about anything that we're talking about today, if you're watching this live, I'll be on chat on live stream immediately following the presentation, and you can ask any questions you have there. I usually stick around for 20 or 30 minutes after the presentation. If you're watching an archived version of this, feel free to send me an email at ask@ancestry.com. I try to address any questions I get repeatedly in future broadcasts, or you can post a comment on YouTube if you're watching this there. So let's dive into just our quick discussion about why you might want to have one tree or many trees, and then I'll show you some of the logistics of how to get your tree where you want it to be. Okay. So one tree versus many trees is a discussion that rages in a lot of places, and there's reasons why you might want things one way or the other, and so I've just tried to represent some of those. One of the reasons you might want one tree is because it gives you a complete view of your entire family. So some of the ways that people tend to split their trees is I have a tree for my father and a tree for my mother's side of the family, or I have a tree for my side of the family and a tree for my husband's side of the family. The problem with that is that you don't get a complete view of your entire family. You could never then print out a pedigree chart that shows your entire ancestry because you've got it in two separate trees. And so that's one of the reasons to have all of your data in one tree. Another reason you might want all of your data in one tree is because it creates fewer duplicates, and on a lot of levels. So the first level would be if you've created a tree, say you've got a tree for each of your 4 grandparents, right? And I've seen people do that. So if you've got a tree for each of your 4 grandparents, you could start the tree with them, but then where are you and your parents? They're going to be in every one of those 4 trees. So now you've got duplicate entries across 4 trees. The other place those duplicate entries show up is once you start getting into families that come from a little bit more isolated regions, there tends to be a lot of intermarriage. So I could take my say this correctly, my maternal grandfather's side of the family and my maternal grandmother's side of the family and put them in separate trees. But very quickly, as I was tracing not just the grandparents and the great-grandparents and so forth, but I also trace siblings and children and grandchildren, there's a lot of intermarriage there. And so I'd end up doing duplicate research if I didn't remember that this person in this tree is the same as this person in this tree. So it creates fewer duplicates when you have one tree. And then one of the reasons that people have a tree, and actually this is more a reason why people have multiple trees, but hopefully I can explain this correctly. Some people like to work on pieces of their tree at a time, or they've inherited a Gedcom or a piece, or looked at some information from somebody else's tree online and started a little twig of a tree just to work out the details of that. So you could have working tree pieces, and then once you get those tree pieces where you feel like it's well documented and it's accurate, you could then import that piece of a tree into your, and I use this word complete in quotes, you'll notice, into your complete tree once you've documented it. So then your one tree is your well documented public facing tree, and then the little pieces of tree that you're working on, once you've completed it and imported it into your main tree, you can delete it. Hope that makes sense. We're going to see the flip side of that here under the argument for having many trees, which is just the other side of that. Some people keep their working tree, the big one, private, And then as they complete pieces, a branch here or a branch there, they will copy or export that into its own tree and then make that public, which is one of the other reasons why people have multiple trees, which is for sharing. Like, they want to be able to share parts of their tree with the cousins that that part of the tree pertains to without sharing their whole tree with that particular cousin. And so those two things sometimes go hand in hand. And so that's an argument for having many trees, is that ability to share without opening up your whole tree to somebody. And then for some people, it just, what I've heard is, my tree is getting so big, and it's always amusing to me when I ask them, well, how big is your tree? Some people think that anything over 1,000 is big. Some people think anything over 20 or 30,000 is big. It's just very much a perception issue, and so I use that word. It just feels more manageable to some to have many trees rather than to have one giant tree that might overwhelm them a little bit. So those are the reasons for one tree or many trees. It's up to you what you decide to do. There is no right or wrong way to do this. You decide what's going to work for you. And like I said, I've tried to present kind of a balanced idea of why you might want to do one thing over the other thing, or even in the case of this working tree versus complete tree, or working tree versus complete pieces. I've tried to give you a reason why you might want to do some kind of a combination of the two. So, how do you do this? Here comes the how-to part of this. And if you've got notes or a piece of paper handy and you might want to take some notes, you can always watch this video again. But sometimes I've learned if we take notes as we listen and watch, we tend to retain stuff a little bit better. So, why might you want to split or how might you split or combine your family trees? The first question you need to answer is your tree online at Ancestry.com, or is it in a software program? Okay. If your tree is online only, you will need to get it into a software program. The reason is you cannot split or combine trees online. Once you've uploaded it online, it becomes a little bit more static, it becomes a little bit more cumbersome, and it becomes a little bit more difficult to manipulate. Software programs, just by their nature, by the way that the databases are created and the fact that it's on your hard drive, on your computer, that data becomes a lot more manipulatable. Is that even a word? It becomes a lot easier to manipulate. And don't be afraid of that, right? There are lots of software programs that are available. With Family Tree Maker 2012, with the latest version of Family Tree Maker, if your tree is online, it's just almost a one-click thing to get your tree synced and into your software. And excuse me, and it brings over all of your media, all of your images, all of your notes when you do that. If you are not using Family Tree Maker, you will need to download a Gedcom from your online tree, and I'll show you how to do that, and import it into whatever software program you're using, whatever genealogy software program you're using. Now, the problem with Gedcom is it's an old data format. It's been around for a really long time, but it only imports data, pieces of data. It does not import images or attached documents. And that's just the limitation of that data format that's been around for decades, I think. Okay, so here's how you're going to, if you have Family Tree Maker, it's just simply a matter of, you'll see up here I have this little icon in Family Tree Maker where I can sync it to my online tree. So that means I can work in Family Tree Maker, or I can work on my Ancestry tree, and either place it keeps these two trees in sync with one another. Okay, and it doesn't matter which direction you start. It doesn't matter if you start with your tree online and sync it into Family Tree Maker, or if you start with your tree in Family Tree Maker and sync it online. Either way, that works. Okay, hopefully I said that correctly. Now, if your tree is online, so you'll see here I have several trees, not all of them are mine. When my tree is online, I have the option here to come in here and to look at my tree settings. Now we're going to talk in couple of weeks about privacy and versus public, and that will probably be a really good discussion. But for today's purposes, I just want you to scroll over here where it says Manage Your Tree, and you have the option to export your family tree data as a Gedcom file to your computer. So you can just click on that export, and I won't do it because my tree has got a lot of people and a lot of things attached to it. It would take too much time. So you click on Export Tree, and it asks you to name the file and where you want to save it on your computer, and then you have that file then to import into whichever software program you would like to use. So you're going to export out of Ancestry trees and then import into your family tree program, whatever your software program is. Okay, so that's what you have to do just to start working on splitting or combining your family tree, is you have to have your tree in some kind of software program. There are free programs on the market, as I mentioned, Family Tree Maker 2012, and if you just go to familytreemaker.com, you'll see the latest deal price for that. It's not very expensive, or you can just download a Gedcom out of your Ancestry tree and import it into whatever software program you're using. Okay. Now, once you have that file, you can do any number of things with it. So we're going to look at, or actually walk through, both directions here. We're going to look at how you take one tree and split it into multiple trees, whether that's 2 or 10, it doesn't matter. But the feature that you're going to use, no matter what software program you're using, is going to be an export feature. Typically, that's going to be found under the File option. So here is my Family Tree Maker. This is actually my live working Family Tree Maker program. You can see I've got 56,000 people in here and lots of images and documents and things attached. And if your purpose for wanting to split it into multiple trees is that you think your file is getting too big, let me assure you that if your file is smaller than mine, you're not going to have any problem. I have yet to hit any kind of a wall with bandwidth, any kind of a wall with space or issues on my computer. I haven't hit any kind of a wall with slowness, none of that. Okay, so this program is designed to handle large databases. Okay, now the reason my tree has 56,000 people in it has nothing to do with, it's not strictly Ancestry, right? I don't have that many ancestors. I do a lot of descendancy research where I'll pick an ancestor, born 200 or 300 years ago and then trace all their descendants. And quickly you end up with 10 or 20,000 people who are descendants of a single person. So anyway, I felt like I needed to justify myself for some reason. So what you're looking for is an export feature. It's typically going to be somewhere under File. Here I have Export. So you can export your entire file, but that kind of defeats the purpose, right? Because you're trying to split your tree. So I'm going to export selected individuals. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this great-grandfather here, Albert Jefferson Kerr, and I want to create a tree that just revolves around just him. So I'm going to export all of his ancestors, including all their parents and all their spouses, right? And that gives me 65 people. Then I'm also going to export all of his descendants. So all of his children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. I think we're up to great-great-grandchildren on that particular family. So now I have a database here now of 241 people that are going to be included in this new tree that I'm creating. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to save this to my desktop here just so I can find it. I'm going to name it the Albert Jefferson Kerr tree here. And click Save, and you'll notice it happens very quickly. Like I'm just exporting a couple hundred people. You'll notice I've got sources, 1,800 sources on 241 people. I've got lots of media attached there, right? And it's done. Like I created my tree. Okay. Now I'm going to do this one more time, and you'll see why here in just a minute. Let's see if I can find, there she is. Okay, so this is my great-grandmother. I'm actually named after her. We share a middle name. And I want to create a tree just for her. So again, I'm going to come in here to File and Export, Selected Individuals. There's Ada Mae O'Brien. I want to export all of her ancestors and then all of her descendants. And now I've got a tree that I've started here, or that I'm going to create here, of 170 people. And I'm going to click OK. Then I'm going to save it as the Ada Mae O'Brien tree. And actually, all I've done now is just create an export file, or it's almost like a backup file of just that part of the tree, okay? So let's close this tree now. So this is my master tree that I've been working in. I've exported pieces of my tree. Now I'm going to close that. And now I'm going to import, right? So I exported, and now I'm going to, actually let's do it this way. Let's do it as an open. There it is. Okay, I'm going to open my new tree, okay? So let's start with my great-grandfather. And it's going to ask me what I want to call this tree. I'm going to click save, and now it's imported, just like that. Like that was really speedy, right? And now you'll see I have all 241 people. I can come here to myself, come over here, make him the home person. And now there's his tree. So it's got all of his ancestors, and it's got all of his descendants in this one tree, okay? I can do the same thing for this other tree, or this other file here. So there's Ada Mae O'Brien. We're going to create a tree out of that export file. And now if I come over here to my main screen, you'll see I have my master tree, because that's what I call it, so I don't get confused. And now I have created two separate trees out of that tree that are for two of my great-grandparents. Okay, so that is, if you take one tree and make it into, you can split it into 2 trees or 4 or 27, it doesn't matter, right? But you're going to use the export feature to create an export file. You noticed it took all the sources, it took all the media attached when I did it in Family Tree Maker. And then I just open up those new trees, and now I have my separate trees, okay? Now, we're going to go the other direction, okay? We're going to take many trees and make them into one tree. So let's say you got started, and when you started, you did a tree for your father and a tree for your mother, and then you realized, hey, wait, I can't ever see my own ancestry all at one view. So I'm going to combine those 2 trees into one tree. So you're going to use the merge feature in whatever software program you're using. I'll show you how to do it in Family Tree Maker. But what you're looking for is some kind of a merge feature. And let me show you how that works. So let's go into Albert Jefferson Kerr's tree here. Didn't double click fast enough. Okay, so here I have my great-grandfather's tree. And you remember, I have all his ancestry and I have all of his descendancy. Now I want to combine it with this other tree. So I'm going to go to File and Merge. And it's going to ask me to create a backup. And if you've been doing a lot of work, for sure you're going to want to do that. And I just created this tree, so I'm not going to take the time to make that backup. And then it's going to say, what tree do you want to merge with it? Okay, so I'm going to take this Ada Mae O'Brien tree, and that's the tree that I want to merge with it. Okay. It's going to ask me if I want to include everybody or just some people. Now, chances are you should, I would hope, want to include everyone. And then it's going to ask you this really important question over here, and the default is generally going to be correct. It's going to say, do you want to merge matching individuals, or do you want to just add individuals without merging? So if you just add individuals without merging, the problem is, right, I, for example, am in both files. Because I am a descendant of both of these people on different sides of my family. All of my brothers and sisters and their kids, my parents, my aunts and uncles, like we're all in both files, right? So this option to merge matching individuals is for sure what you want to do. If you choose not to do it, you can still go back later and merge duplicate people. Right? That's one of my favorite features of Family Tree Maker, is the ability to merge duplicate people, because sometimes that happens. So I'm going to click Next, and I'll just walk you through a couple of these. We're not going to walk through the whole process, because what you're going to see here are all of the people in the tree that are duplicates, right? And then here below that are all of the new people from the O'Brien tree that we're going to merge into the Kerr tree. So that these people just get added, and these people have to be merged, okay? And so it'll walk me through that. I can either do it one at a time, right? And you'll see here, like, you know, different people in this family. Let's see if I can find my grandma. So there's my grandma. I can walk through those one at a time, or I can just do them all at once, right? If I just click merge, it'll merge all of those duplicates from one tree into the other tree. And, oh, it may actually finish. This process is a little bit slower than the export process, and when I tested it earlier, it took just a few minutes longer than I thought I was willing to spend. Yep, okay, that's what happens when I try to have too many programs open at once and do too many things at once. So the idea is then you merge one tree, you pick a tree, and you merge another tree into it, okay? And I just canceled that because it was going to take too long. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how the process works. Again, let me just go back and review a couple of things really quickly so that you make sure that you have it all in your head straight. Merging and splitting, let me try that again. Splitting and combining family trees is not something you can do online. You have to have a software program to do that. You can either do it directly through Family Tree Maker as a sync, or you can export a Gedcom out of your Family Tree Maker, or out of your online tree here, export tree, create a Gedcom file, which is just a flat data file, and import it into whatever software program you're using. And then, once you've done that, depending on which direction you're going, you either need to look for an export feature or a merge feature. Okay, hopefully that wasn't too technical. I know some of you, this may feel a little bit intimidating. Like I said, I'll be on chat immediately following this, so if you have questions, please feel free to stick around and ask them. I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have about this. If you have a lot of questions, or if you're totally overwhelmed, or if you're watching this on archive, please feel free to email at ask@ancestry.com. If I see that I'm getting several of the same type of question, I'll schedule a follow-up presentation to walk through some of these things in a little bit more detail, or to answer some of those more specific questions. As always, you can check the Ancestry.com Facebook page. We just updated it, I think, yesterday or the day before, with all of our events for the month of August. So if you go to our Facebook page, at the very top, there's a set of tabs. I think you have to expand it. Click on the Events tab. You'll see all the topics for the month of August. You can RSVP for whichever ones capture your fancy. So that's all I have for you today. Until next time, this is Crista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.